All right, folks, can we do the Alex Jones shout out for old time's sake? What do you guys think? I've been hearing a lot of complaints that we haven't had that for a while, so.
Let's get to the shout out. Shout out, shout out. Creepy. Shout out, shout out, shout out. Weird. I think that's creepy. It's incredible. Shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out. This is crazy. Shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out. This is out of control. Shout out, shout out. That's creepy. Shout out, shout out. That's weird. Shout out, creepy. Shout out, weird. Shout out, crazy. Shout out, shout out. This is crazy. Shout out. This is out of control. Shout out. This is weird. Shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out, shout out.
I want to give a little bit of a shout out to Portugal's center-left government, still in power. And this is significant. This piece is from a year ago, but it actually does a pretty good job of sort of setting up some of the basic parameters of what the Antonio Costa government has been able to achieve. This is significant because I think for those of us who do recognize that there does need to be a left push beyond social democracy, it's still important. I mean, the recent election in Spain, forming a socialist and Podemos coalition, is significant. We don't want to root at all for a complete collapse of these forces and parties in Europe, particularly when the alternatives have been so damaging. And Portugal has been able to stay in power and fend off the right wing through a solid anti-austerity agenda. That seems to be, and it shouldn't surprise anybody, a very baseline for maintaining any kind of center-left momentum, completely rejecting the zombie idea and the public terrorism of austerity. I'm going to quote a little bit from the piece now. A turning point in 2015, famous Lisbon mayor Costa is elected prime minister. The first major change occurred during the general election 2015. This was a time when the right-wing conservative government had dismantled social welfare state piece by piece, which resulted in a furious population voicing their dissatisfaction in the voting booth and causing conservatives to lose 11% of their previous electoral votes. Lisbon's former mayor Antonio Costa, a socialist, won by a landslide and brought in 32% after being, and at first, he was fought harshly by the Europeans and by Angela Merkel. Germany's finance minister saw it as a, quote, grave mistake that Portugal would depart from austerity. And then, of course, that led to what was written of and called in this article a miraculous economic recovery, because, of course, the austerity strategy is a disaster. They reversed austerity. They did that through raising taxes on the wealthy and beginning to try to piece together again their social welfare state. And I think this is really important because I don't see a piece of all of these various pieces we're moving that does not involve some resiliency of social democratic forces. So in other words, obviously there's nothing more important right now in the United States than the Sanders candidacy. Is the Sanders candidacy the be-all and end-all of what can and needs to be achieved politically? Of course not. I mean, and obviously in a mature adult worldview, nothing ever is. But the reason we want, and this is the paradox, right? The reason we want to get beyond what Sanders is proposing is so we can safeguard what Sanders is proposing. That's the lesson of the last, post-Cold War, World War II and consensus being destroyed, right? Which is that social democratic New Deal gains are always uprooted by the capitalist class. So we need something to actually break their power. Ultimately, that's serious labor power. But conversely, in environments of such utter devastation and deprivation, really vital, humane social democratic reforms like the ones Sanders is running on and the ones that have been achieved by the Costa government in Portugal are what can start to open up the space for people to have the capacity to act politically. So this is important. Shout out to Portugal. You just watched a Michael Brooks show video. Subscribe to get them all. Why wouldn't you? Don't be foolish.
click subscribe below and become a patron as well. Patreon.com/TMBS. Thanks, everybody.